For a little background, the events of this story took place when I was 21 years old. I'm a male, and have always been somewhat awkward. I was never in the popular crowd, and never really found my clique in high school. I've also always been pretty okay at talking to girls and or asking them out. It's not that I'm overly nervous, I just never really knew the right way to go about it, or carry the conversation. I have a twin sister who is the exact opposite. She was always popular, had tons of friends, and was usually in a steady relationship. She was a bit of a social butterfly, and we used to joke around about how different we were from one another. It never bothered me, and in fact, some of my fondest memories of my childhood was goofing around and poking fun at each other with my sister. Fast forward to when I was 21, right around Valentines Day. I'm not sure if it was the constant cold weather, or the fact that my sister was hanging out with her boyfriend, but I was feeling especially lonely. I asked my sister if she would help me set up a dating profile on one of the 1,000 dating websites out there. We went through all the criteria, and gave it a few days to see if I got any responses. I received a few messages, but the conversations fizzled out after a few exchanges. The day before Valentine's Day, I received a message from a girl who was extremely attractive and who wouldn't have given me a shot back in the day of high school. Her name was Gwen, which I very much liked because it reminded me of Gwen Stacy from the Spider-Man comics. She made talking very easy, which was awesome because I was never good at steering conversations. She laughed at my dry sense of humor, and always kept the conversation going. Thinking she was possibly not who she said she was, or perhaps catfish, I asked her to video chat with me, and she complied. I was shocked when it was really her. I couldn't believe it. We talked about a lot of things, the things you ask someone when you're getting to know them, and clearly interested in. She eventually told me that I was one of the nicest people she'd ever spoken to, and that I was different than the other guys she had talked to or been with in the past. We eventually set up a plan for a date and to meet in person. When the day came, I picked her up, but not from her house. She said she had to work and that I could pick her up from downtown. I didn't think anything of it, so it didn't set off any red flags. We had a few drinks, then went to dinner. We had plans to go to the movies after dinner, but as I was paying the check, she said, "Let's go on an adventure." Confused by what that meant, I asked her to clarify. She said in the bubbly voice I grew so accustomed and comfortable with, "Let's go to Blue Lakes. They have the trails there, and the moonlight will be on the lake. It'll be super romantic, and way better than any movie." Nervous, but excited, I said of course. But in my own mind, I liked the idea of the movies because I didn't have to worry about what to say and carrying on a conversation. We drove to Blue Lakes, which is the name of this beautiful park in my hometown. It's not actually called Blue Lakes, but because the lake has a deep blue color, everybody in town calls it Blue Lakes. We got there at about 10 p.m., and I was starting to get nervous and felt like I was somehow going to mess things up. I texted my sister and told her where I was, and asked her to give me some kind of advice on what to do or what to say. She didn't respond right away. "Thanks, sis." There was a couple cars in the parking lot, which was weird for the time of night, but I was trying to have fun. She said, "Oh, don't be nervous about the cars. It's probably just some couples still celebrating Valentine's Day." She grabbed my hand and started walking toward one of the trails. She could have said anything at this point, and I would have went along with her. She let go of my hand and walked onto the trail beside the lake. She said very loudly, "Wow, look how beautiful this place is." I thought it was kind of weird how loud she said it, but again I didn't really care. While she was staring at the water, I checked my phone to see if my sister texted me back, and she did. It just said, "Get out of there now." Thoroughly freaked out and truly not sure why, I looked up from my phone to see Gwen was standing right there with a smile on her face. "What's wrong, Andrew?" she said in a soft voice. I tried, but I couldn't answer. I had 100 things running through my head right now. She said in a flirtatious voice, "Don't you want to kiss me, Andrew?" I finally had the courage to respond, and said, "I need to leave." Gwen laughed at me and said, "Aw, don't be shy, Andrew. We just got here. I turned around and tried to walk out of the trail, and there was two guys standing there. I was frozen in fear, not sure why they weren't moving out of the way. Gwen came up behind me and whispered in my ear, "Andrew, we're not leaving yet. My friends just got here." I tried to run, but two more guys ran from the other side and tackled me. I'm a pretty big guy, but I couldn't hold my own against four guys. They held me down, taking turns punching and kicking me. It hurt, but the adrenaline from being scared kept me from being in intense pain. They tied me to a tree, stole my wallet, took my car keys, and hit me a couple more times before leaving. Gwen took my phone and threw it in the lake. Within minutes of being there tied to the tree, I saw flashing lights turn into the park. I screamed for help, and the police found me tied to the tree. They held me down and began questioning me when my sister arrived. Apparently, as soon as I texted her, she called the cops and rushed over here herself. She was at a party, and a group of guys were there saying they were going to jump some loser at Blue Lakes. They had an entire plan to rob him and beat him up and leave him there. My sister told them they were lame and jerks and walked away, not really thinking about it until a couple hours later when I texted her. The contents of the story have caused me to recently move back home with my parents who live in another state. Last year I was enjoying my first year of being a college grad and living in my own home. Well, a house I rented, but I still lived alone. I was focused on my job and wasn't really looking for a boyfriend or anything like that. Every morning I go down to the park, which is only about a 2-minute walk, and I jog before getting ready for work. On Valentine's Day, my routine was no different. As I was finishing my jog, I was approached by a pretty handsome-looking man. He was tall, looked in shape, styled hair, and super white teeth. My creep alarm was not going off at all. He said in a calming voice, "You're very pretty, and I just thought I would tell you that, and I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day." And then he just jogged off. Honestly, it kind of made me smile because that kind of stuff doesn't usually happen to me. After all that excitement, I just continued on with my day, like I would any other day. At about 1 p.m., the secretary at my job told me I had a package. I thought this was very strange considering I never get packages ever. It was a huge, beautiful bouquet of roses. There was a note on the roses that said, "To the lovely lady I saw at the park, I hope this makes you smile." Now it did make me smile, which is stupid, but I immediately realized how weird and creepy it was. That night I was cooking dinner. I was going to do some work for my home computer. I thought I could hear a noise outside my window, but I just chalked it up to the wind or something. I got up a little after 8 to clean some dishes and take a break from the computer. I looked out of my kitchen sink window and saw a car outside my house parked in the street. Now I had no other reason to be freaked out other than just a bad feeling. There was no parking on my street after 7 p.m., and I've never seen this car before. Now again, there could have been dozens of explanations, but I just didn't feel good about the entire situation. I just felt really off. I sat back down at the computer trying to focus on my work, but I had this sickening feeling in my stomach. As I sat there in the dead silence of my room is when I was sure I could hear something. I had a window that sat right next to my computer where I was sitting. I pulled back the curtain and exposed the man from the park trying to break into the window. We locked eyes, and he just stared at me like a deer in the headlights. He did not have the same smile as before the park. He looked mean and aggressive. After only a couple of seconds of eye contact, which seemed like an eternity, he started to bang on the window, screaming, "Let me in!" I screamed and ran to the other room, calling the police. He must have heard me because I saw out of the kitchen window him run to the car in front of my house. I couldn't make out the license. All I knew it was some sort of Chevy. I never forgot the look in his eyes. Valentine's Day is a time for love and showing emotion and gratitude to that very special person in your life. 4 years ago, my girlfriend and I decided to go out for Valentine's Day. Where we live, it is still fairly warm in February, so I decided to take my girlfriend on a picnic that we had been planning for about a week or so. My girlfriend and I love being outdoors, and I figured after the picnic perhaps we could walk on a trail or perhaps take a quick hike. About a month ago while I was hiking, I found this amazing spot where I thought we could have the picnic. From one of the main trails, it only took about 15 minutes to walk there, and it wasn't that hard of a walk either. You did have to go off of one of the main trails, around a semi-narrow bend and leading to a small rock formation. The area overlooked our home. It was a beautiful view, and enough flat land where we could sit and have a really nice picnic. I set up an entire area for us, chairs, tables, and a bunch of our favorite snack foods. On the rear side of this spot was more woods, and even in the daylight there were so many trees back there that it seemed dark. So when Valentine's Day finally came, we set off for our adventure. Thankfully it was a beautiful sunny day. It was warm with nice breeze, and not a cloud in the sky. We held hands on the trail, until we got to the spot where I went off the trail. I told her to trust me as we went off the path. She was hesitant, but was down for the journey. Just as I expected, the short trip was easy for her. We reached the spot in no time and she was blown away. She just stopped and stared out at the horizon in awe. When she saw the spread of food I had, she was even more blown away. Today could not have gone any better, and in almost a blink of an eye that changed. While we were laughing and staring at the beautiful view, she stopped suddenly. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she heard something in the woods. I looked behind in the dark trees, but saw nothing. I told her she was crazy, just kidding around obviously, and tried to go back to flirting with her, but she wasn't having it. She insisted that I check out the woods. So annoyed more than anything, I told her I would. I got right up to where the tree line started, and I peeked through the almost endless amounts of trees. I saw nothing. If I'm being honest, I had a really hard time making out anything in there, but I truly didn't see anything. She approached after a minute or two, and she said in a terrified voice, "Right there, you don't see that shape? It looks like a person." I squinted and tried to make out the shape. It just looked like a shadow to me. "Babe, I think that's just a shadow," I responded in an almost condescending voice. She was hysterical and asked me to please look at it. So I stepped into the dark forest, and to my absolute fear, the dark figure moved. It was very slight, almost like a shoulder shrug, but I saw it. At this moment I felt intense anxiety and fear, but I didn't want to freak out my girlfriend, or even worse, alert this potentially dangerous person that I knew they were there. After only a couple of steps, I told my girlfriend I needed something, and I turned back to where we were sitting. I grabbed my girlfriend, and I tried to tell her not to freak out, but that I did in fact see a person in the trees. She was crying hysterically, and I was just trying to think of the best way to get out fast. I looked down over the overlookout, but it was just too steep. The only way was the way that we came, which was fine, but I just didn't want this lunatic to follow us. I decided to leave all the stuff behind and start walking down the rock formation. She went down first as I stared into the trees, and that's when I saw it clear as day. The shadowy figure was definitely a man, and he was approaching us now. He was only about 45 or 50 feet away. I couldn't make out any specific details, but it looked like he had a beard. I finally started going down the rock formation, and I told my girlfriend to run as fast as she could. We made it to the trail quickly. As we stopped to catch our breath, we heard the rustling of trees and the crack of the sticks. This man was chasing us. She pulled out her phone to call the police, but apparently she didn't have a signal. Of course. We finally reached the parking lot of the park trails, and there were 2 police cars. The police were already looking for someone. Apparently, there was a woman jogging the trails earlier in the morning and found a man laying off to the side of one of the trails. She called the authorities right away, and the man reported being mugged and robbed. We told the cops everything, but by the time they got into the woods, they couldn't find the man. From what I understand, they never caught this crazy person in the woods, and I'm not sure what he would have done if he actually caught us. I still can't believe my girlfriend spotted him from so far away, and I'm so thankful she did. We both have a really hard time going on nature trails now, and I still have yet to return to that park. From now on, we decided best to just stay indoors, especially for Valentine's Day. This is a short story that happened to me last year on Valentine's Day. I recently bought a house with my soon-to-be husband. He works really hard and always spoils me when he can. While he was at work, I decided to run down to the local store and buy some stuff to make him a romantic dinner. The store is literally 100 yards away from the house at most, so I left quickly around 1 p.m. and did not lock my door. I live in a really safe area with hardly any crime, and the police station right around the block. I was going to be back in less than 10 minutes, so I didn't think it was a big deal to lock my door. I left and came back in just under 15 minutes. I waited in line longer than I thought. The rest of my afternoon was normal. I prepared dinner and got the table set with candles and everything along those lines. My afternoon was fairly normal, and just like any other day. At about 4:30 p.m., I went to the bathroom and I thought I could smell a funny smell, almost like cologne. My boyfriend didn't wear cologne, but I didn't think too much about it. Maybe it was body wash from the shower or something along those lines. A little after 7, my boyfriend came home from work. He greeted me with Valentine's Day flowers and an amazing piece of cheesecake that I would have been having for dessert. I was thrilled. He was also so thankful for the dinner I had prepared for him. We had a lovely evening. After we ate, he said he was going to go wash up and meet me on the couch for a movie and some cheesecake. As he walked upstairs where our bathroom was, he stopped talking mid-sentence and said in a voice that still haunts me, "What's that smell?" I came to the bottom of the stairs and asked if he smelled the cologne too. He did, and immediately mouthed the words "call 911" to me. I went to the other room and called. I tried to whisper as to not alert the potential intruder. What my boyfriend didn't tell me until later was that he saw muddy footprints on the bathroom floor, and the shower curtain was open, with 2 wet, dirty footprints inside. Next to the bathroom is a spare room that we don't use, and the door was shut, and that door is never shut. He grabbed the door slowly and tried to turn the handle, but it was being held from the other side. He kicked open the door, and to the horror of both of us was a small, dirty-looking man. He was dressed in all black with brown work boots. My boyfriend, who was only of average build, slammed him down with ease and pushed him against the wall. After only a few minutes, the police showed up and quickly ran upstairs. Luckily, nobody was hurt, and the intentions of this intruder were unknown. I was alone all afternoon with him, and he did nothing. I couldn't sleep well that night. I remembered that it was all my fault. I always locked the door, and this one time I decided not to. I began to freak out that the man was in the shower right next to me when I was going to the bathroom. I'm just so thankful my boyfriend didn't get hurt, and that the police station is literally right around the block. This year he took Valentine's Day off with me, and we're still trying to cope with the experience. The worst part is we still never got answers. We don't know why this man broke in, and I'm not sure we ever will.